Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Service Drive Revolution. Today, we're going to talk about why Christian is muted. You can see him there if you're watching, but you can't hear him because he's muted. So he's going to be doing a lot of sign language in this show, and I'll interpret for you. But we're going to talk about some things in the news, some interesting insights into books that we love, human behavior, because we have a special guest today, John Taylor, who is a Honda dealer that went from washing cars all the way to owning his own dealership and what he's learned about people and business and everything else. So that and much more coming up on this edition of Service Drive Revolution. Okay, so Christian, should we tell everybody why I'm filming in my living room on my computer?
We should. Just keep in mind, though, that I may have to spontaneously mute.
Our office has been closed this week, and I don't know what we're going to do next week because they're supposed to be fixing the roof, but now the drain got backed up and it flooded the place. And so now we have rain coming, so they're not going to be able to finish the roof, and we can't really do much until...
Yeah, I'm under fire here at the office, everyone. I'll make it through, but I definitely...
You're the only one there, and I don't... Why are you... How can you function? It sounds like a war zone.
It does a little bit. Well, first, it's a really good conversation piece. Second is, I really like the setup that I have in my office. Like, I love my office. And
so the building's burning down and you're like, nope, I want my...
Loving it. I'm playing Tetris in the background. I can switch cameras. Like, there's a lot of fun stuff that happens in my office. So I'm going down with the ship.
What else has been going on? So you've been on the road.
So
you were on the road.
So it doesn't happen very often, but it is nice to get back out there. So I did one, and I do this thing where I'm doing like 2-day trips, which I think is better because when I travel way too much, I miss what we're doing at the office. And like, I mean, literally, if someone's going to spring a leak, I want to be here for that. And so I'll do like these little 2-day things. And my first week I was out, one of Chris and my favorite groups that we work with, we did, because it's been a few years since they've signed up with us, we did what we called a reboot camp. So I thought it was a ton of fun. It was a really nice mixture. Every general manager, service manager, parts manager was in the reboot camp. And we just had a lot of fun kind of like reconnecting. And at the end of the day, you know, everyone kind of agreed that it's so much about like that, how we execute and how we do anything is how we do everything. And it was just really, really fun to get back and do that. And then the very next weekend, I was down in Florida doing some advisor training, which was the most I've ever trained in 2 days. You probably have trained more, but it was over 100 in 2 days, which I thought was, that was a lot of people to touch. And it was really sweet to see how many of the advisors in that group they're fans. Like, they're really big fans. So shout out to Brett and Foster, by the way. I told them I'd do that. But, then we just really talked for 2 days about, connecting with the customers. And it was all about conversations with the customers and how to make that experience better. And they were super receptive, but it was fun to get back into the classroom a little bit. So I had a good time.
That's good stuff. Okay, let's get to what's in the news.
GM just announced that they're going to be axing hundreds of jobs. They say it's not about cutting costs, but essentially they're kind of saying it was performance based and everything like that. I would beg to differ. That if you're cutting hundreds and hundreds of jobs, and they have 58,000 employees salaried, especially in the United States, so it's a decent percentage of the workforce that they're getting to. I think this is probably just the start. I think for PR, they're saying it's not about cutting costs. I think that at the end of the day, I think the manufacturers are looking and seeing what can we do to make this a little bit more efficient with a little bit less people. So just be really, really aware of that, everyone, that could be a little bit of a signal of things to come.
There's a big focus on productivity per employee in every industry.
Yeah. My friends at Ford, they have applied for a patent on a technology that that can make your air conditioning and radio shut down if you miss a car payment. So, and it says, and the car could even drive away on its own. I think it's hilarious. But essentially, like what the article suggests is that Ford's filed for that patent. One, if it's a self-driving car that it could leave. The second is it could lock you out of your vehicle or make it not stop. And then the car could start beeping at you. Like, you know, when you don't do your seatbelt and there's that terrible noise, you're going to get like a no, I didn't pay my payment noise. So I thought that was absolutely hilarious.
We got an exciting guest next that we are going to talk to. His name is John Taylor. He's Honda dealer, friend of the show. And what's great about him is he's a fan of books. He's a fan of human behavior and business performance and all that. But he started off as a porter and worked his way up to a dealer. He has a fascinating story. And so we want to share him with you right now. So John, welcome to the big show. We've teased that you are a porter that's gone from the very, very, entry-level position all the way to owning your own dealership, which is something that does not happen that often, and a true tribute to you. Could you just start off maybe by just giving us a little background on how you got into our industry and the Reader's Digest version of the progression?
I went to visit a buddy of mine who was cleaning cars at a local car dealership. And I was out there just kind of, BSing with him. And the guy came up. He was a little guy that had he was Irish. This is exactly what he was. His name was Jim Pendergast, and he was Irish. And he had an Irish accent. And he stood about probably 5'5", probably weighed about 200 pounds, but he was kind of a bigger guy, stocky. And he asked me what I was doing there. And I just told him I was, hanging out talking to my buddy. And he said, if you're going to hang out and talk to a friend of yours, you better. He reached in a bucket and grabbed one of those big sponges out and threw it at me and hit me with it. He says, if they're going to be hanging around here, you need to start cleaning cars. And I started cleaning cars. He put me in a room. I went and asked him if, for a job. And he said, go back there and wait for me. He never asked me to fill out any paperwork or anything. And it was 9 a.m. because that's when they opened up at 9. And he made me wait. So by 12 o'clock, it was noon. And I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? And I walked out that little door because you're sitting in a little customer waiting lounge with the 90-degree chairs, the way it used to be. I walked out that door and he was standing there waiting for me. And he just told me, he pointed to get back in there. Get back in there. And I was like, okay. So I turned around, I got back in there. And then it was about 5:55 maybe 6 o'clock. He come walking in, he says, okay, you're hired. And that was the end of it. Ironically, that's the guy that, really took me underneath his wing. And he showed me how to work. He put the dream in me is what he did. He put the desire in the goal. And I think that's when I put my blinders on, this is what I'm going to do because that's what I'm supposed to do now. And I let the passion overrule the work in the long run.
Starting where you started to where you are now, owning a dealership, you have made some observations about human behavior, mindsets, people's approach to things. What is it in you that was that thing that made you think you were capable of more?
35 years later, 40 years later, going through all the different layers, from sales manager to, finance, sales manager, used car manager, general sales manager, all the way through those ranks. I just kept learning and growing and pushing, and I just never quit. I don't know, maybe I wasn't, maybe I didn't see the fact that it wasn't, or maybe I just felt like it was something that I could do if I just really never quit. I never quit. I just kept going. But I will say one thing, and I forget what year it was, but it was I started reading books. And once I started reading books, and I thought about this. If you're interested enough, that's what I really like about you guys. You guys are interested in what you do. You're not just doing it. You're even interested. You really like. I mean, I listen to you guys, and you're interested in what you're talking about, and you're looking for ways. You're pulling out data and information. And I was also very interested. Like, how did these people do this? How did these people lead? What, so there was only one way I was going to get that, and that was to go get it myself. And the only way I was going to get it was I had to go, figure out how to get it. So I literally, for about 20 years, I specifically on purpose worked at least 45 minutes away from where I live. And I started listening to the book on tape. And I just never quit. And I've been doing it for 30 years.
What are some of the books that had an effect on you?
The very best book I think that I ever read was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that was actually the very first book that I read. And I read it 6 times. And then there's a lot of other great books, The Joy of Work. I could go on and on and on and on. Good to Great, The Academy of Leadership. There's a lot of great books, but I definitely took a lot of time to learn how to, I learned how to sell too, by the way. Learning how to sell was a skill. It wasn't just something that, it's not you don't have to be a natural born salesperson to be a good salesperson. You can learn how to sell. You can learn how to prospect. You can learn how to do all those things. But leading people was the real thing that motivated me the most. And the reason was because I felt like, again, I started in this business when I was 17. I never went to college, and I felt like I was undereducated and therefore didn't deserve the right to lead. So I had to go and get it myself.
I think what John's hitting on those is, haven't you noticed, Chris, that we are all kind of attracted to each other. Like when you catch someone else that's like the student and seeking the knowledge, like I want to know what they're doing that's different than what I'm doing. And then can I get a leg up by kind of incorporating whatever it is on their journey to go get that. The only part of that I haven't really like adopted is driving, right? So like, John, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a terrible driver. And
legendarily terrible driver.
Yeah. So yesterday I had to go and do the driver's test. Now I'm one of those ones, like, I can't just go get my picture taken. I have to actually take the test. And there's a person that sits next to me. And I don't know if you guys have done a driving test in a while, but like I'm going down the road and like they're asking me questions and I'm trying to give the answers, but not crash, which is a challenge in itself. And the guy asks me this question. He's like, what do you do at a red light? So I stop and I'm like, well, I usually check my emails and look at Facebook and see if there's any updates. And I didn't pass the driver's test. So, I mean, as much as I'm trying to learn, I can't learn about driving, apparently.
Kind of back, John, to what are you looking for in people now that you've had this experience and, you've had a ton of people work for you, you've seen success and failures. What are the main things and what are your questions that you ask? Like, how do you figure out if they're the person, or do you just leave it to chance? And we had somebody the other day tell me, well, I just throw it at the side of the barn and see if it sticks. So I just hire everybody.
So I'm looking for people that are, I don't want people that have to come to work. I want people that want to come to work. I want people that are, if I could hire, we don't want to all have like, Chris Collins, because that might be a little bit of a difficult arena if everybody was, as talented as Chris Collins was, or maybe Christian, if we had everybody like that, it might be a difficult arena. So we want people that are learning, new people. We want people that have been there. But ultimately, most importantly, is I want engaged people. I want them, and we actually do. I'm sure you're probably aware of the Toyota Production System, TPS. I was with Toyota for 20 plus years. The manufacturer, but the different dealerships. And I learned about continuous improvement and development. And fortunately, I got to work with a guy named Dr. Jeffrey Likert for many years, who is all about lean management and development. And so our systems are to build, everything we try to do is from the bottom up. We like to learn from the floor. And the whole leadership team is we don't have that mentality that they work for us. We have the mentality that we work for them. And my responsibility is to take away all excuses and to make sure that they have the right tools and that they're safe. And then they get the opportunity to tell us how we can get better. So when they learn and trust us, now, before you know it, now you really have something that starts to build and grow.
What sort of questions do you ask?
Type of questions are, what have you done in the past? What is your goals in the future? Because usually a lot of times they'll tell you what they've been successful at. And if you can find out what they've been successful at, then you can find out what they'll be successful at. And that tells me a lot there. Their goals, the things that turn them on are their alignments, their core values. Those are always good things to know also. And the reason why they're doing what they're doing. What motivates them? Do they have a family? Are they just trying to make their next payment? And again, that comes, the hiring process is more important than anything. For whoever, wants to get in leadership or management, the biggest responsibility is the hiring. Because once you hire somebody, the truth is now you have that responsibility. It's your responsibility that that person becomes successful. And if you take hiring with a grain of salt, then you're probably not the best of leaders.
Yeah, I think that the measurement of leadership is misunderstood in the sense that where you measure leadership is in the behavior of others, not the leader.
And when you have managers that complain about their people, right? That always blows my mind.
They're your people.
Yeah. Oh.
Jordan Peterson has a great chapter on that in his book, his second book, 12 Rules for Life, where I think the chapter is called Don't Raise
Children you don't like.
But he says in there, like, you control what they eat, what they think, where they go. And it's the same thing with the manager, right? When a service manager says, oh, well, my people, and you're like, you make their schedule, you control where they sit. I've got people to quit just by moving their desk. It's not real hard to figure out who's on and who's off, right?
But don't you think it all really boils down to that, exactly that? When you're not talking about the whole entire dealership, not just necessarily a service department, but a service department, the backbone of any dealership. In my opinion, it always boils down, in all these years that I've been doing this, when I look back, it always boils down to that leader. It always goes right back to that soul that's leading that group.
And you see it all the time in sports and in business. Like, look, I was thinking about this yesterday. Bob Iger comes back to Disney. It'll be fixed right away. Whatever that guy did in 2 years or whatever, Bob's got it going already, but he'll have it humming again and better than ever. And it's one guy out of, how many employees? 100,000 or whatever. Disney's a huge company, right? He'll have it going, and it's one leader. That's the only difference.
And I bet you if you ask him how he did it, he'd probably have to pause and think his way through that too, because there is no specific silver pill or bullet. It depends on the situation, and you have to learn how to, get the best out of whatever it is that you have in front of you. Sometimes you have to be patient, and sometimes you got to be reactive.
I watched his master class actually, and I thought it was terrible. It's like, it's just one of those, you got to take care of your people. Just none of it is real advice. It's just the Hallmark card of it, because it's all way harder. People wouldn't want to watch the real video of what it's like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Which leads me to something, it's like I've had people working with me, obviously over the years and all the different arenas that I've been in, is I want to be a manager. Now I'm a general manager at the time, and I've got people that want to be managers. So they go from sales to management, and then all of a sudden, now wait a minute, that's a little harder than it looked. Because they used to think that the manager was the guy that was just sitting there telling everybody what to do, but they forgot about what the manager was doing in between all of the things that they were doing between asking people to do what they were supposed to be doing. So it's always, and I think, Tris, that it changes at each level. At least it did for me. That job, you had to be prepared. To be a sales manager, you had to be prepared, right? To be a general manager, you had to be prepared. You had to have those experiences. If you went from basic salesperson to owner, and I'm not trying to, pat any owners on the back, and I don't think all owners are really great leaders of people. I think some owners are just, in fact, just owners. But there's some great owners. but I think you have to have that experience. That's just in my opinion. If you haven't, I don't know what they say. If you haven't done the work, how do you get other people to do the same thing, the thing that you need them to do? If you haven't walked in their shoes.
I don't know if this happened to you, but it happens frequently. That you will become a manager and then you have a couple salespeople or a couple advisors making more than you.
Great. Thank God.
But they don't see it. They don't see it that way. They think they're entitled. The idea is you're coming in now as a manager. You got 12 people to make better. 2 of them are outperforming everybody else, but your pay is contingent on the group rising, not comparing yourself to your top salesperson, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and I tell you the truth, a great manager, if you ask me, wants their people to make more money than them. I mean, let's face it, the more money they make, the more money you make. And by the way, I also learned the more money they make, the less they're likely to leave you.
Yeah.
So right how that works too, right? Now you get longevity, you get the development, the training, and it gets to stick. And now all of a sudden what happens is the viewership starts to grow. And then everybody wins when that happens.
That's an interesting point too, because we run into this all the time where let's say we have a service department that's underperforming, and let's say they're just losing a little bit of money, like they're losing $5,000 a month. And so, when we come in, we're going to redo the pay plan. So we're going to do the advisor's pay plan and we redo the manager's pay plan. And so, you look at this department that was losing money. Now the manager's going to hire 8 technicians and all this stuff's going to happen. And we're going to go from making 5 to making over 100, and parts is going to come along. So now we got a fixed ops operation that's making a couple $100,000 a month. And the manager is now making, let's say they're making 20,000 or something. What'll happen is a lot of these horse traders, and I've never understood this, but a lot of these guys will go, well, a service manager only makes 10 grand. Like if we pay them well and they're a part of the success, we're much more apt to keep them. Now, if they leave, they're going to take people with them because they know, and so I've never understood that, an advisor doesn't make more than 5,000.
That's so old school.
But it's still very prominent. We run into it all the time.
Well, I'm sure both of you guys have had your pay cut before, right? I know I have. I worked for a guy cut my pay 3 times. And then when I finally got a phone call from another dealership that said, hey, come work for me and I'll double your income. The question was, well, why are you leaving? And I to this day, I've never told them. Yeah, I just let it go, and you know what? And Chris, if you do the right job putting a pay plan together in the beginning, setting it up properly, you should never have to cut anybody's pay.
Yeah, and I think to the other point, John, is if you would have told him, what would they have probably blamed that on? They would have said, oh, well, all these public company or all these other dealers are ruining the market because they're paying too much. And they never would reflect on it being their decision-making and their approach to it that caused, you to take a better deal. They would still deflect and say, well, everybody's ruining the market. We run into that with hiring technicians. There's certain people out there like, well, tech can't make more than $30 an hour. And you're like, we got techs making 80 in some markets. Like, the customer's paying for it. You're not paying for it.
And NADA does a guideline that helps guys like me understand what the right compensation should be for those guys, at least for our market, right? And then on top of that, more importantly, they'll let you know too.
Yeah, and also keep in mind those NADA guides are on low the average dealership performs at a very, subpar level. When you start performing, all of those things are guides, but they don't start to make sense anymore when you're really, hitting your full potential or trying to. I don't know that we ever do, but because it is, when you look at those averages, it's pretty, the average service departments.
Yeah, average. Exactly. That's average. Yeah. It gives you a guideline. And that's, guideline is a guideline.
But it also means that the average service department's losing money then, right? If that's 50%.
Yeah, that's bad. I don't want to lose money.
It's great. Well, this was fun, John. Anything else you want to talk about or kind of leave us on?
No, you know what, guys, all I can say is, man, just keep doing what you're doing because, you know, I've read your books and, I think you're, you know, the only, one last thing, and I meant to say this a little bit earlier, is correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are motivated by helping other people. It sounds to me like the driving force behind what it is that you're doing, which ultimately, once you do get to the level that you're at, becomes more powerful than why you started to do what you do anyway. It becomes a driving force. And that's what I saw. I can only tell you to keep doing what you're doing. I think it's super cool, super awesome. And if I can ever do anything to help you guys or do anything at all, hey, you know, I'm going to keep watching, listening, and, you know, I'm always available.
Was great. Good job. That was awesome.
Thanks so much for watching this episode of Service Drive Revolution. We're uploading new stuff every day, so make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss out. If you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show, call 8333-ASK-SDR and we'll answer your question on the show. That's 8333-ASK-SDR. For special deals on our books and training, head over to offers.chriscollinsinc.com. Now that's offers.chriscollinsinc.com. I'm Chris Collins, and I'll see you in the next video.